To start, we're going to measure and combine ingredients. For the dough, we're going to be using 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1/4 teaspoon instant dried yeast, and 1.5 cups warm, around 95 Fahrenheit water. For the pizza topping, we're going to use 1/4 cup tomato sauce made from just crushed tomatoes and salt, fresh mozzarella, extra virgin olive oil, fresh basil, fresh parm, and pepperoni if you prefer. Add the warm water to a large bowl. To that, add the kosher salt, and swish the mixture around with your hand to dissolve. Sprinkle the active dry yeast over the top of the water, just to let it hydrate, and then swish that as well. Next, we're going to mix these ingredients together into a dough. To the water mixture, add the flour. And using your hands, slowly begin to combine. Try to stir in all the flour. You're looking to get this into one single dough mass. This will end up looking like a pretty shaggy ball of dough. Definitely try and get as much of that precious dough off of your hand as possible. Cover the bowl with a towel or plastic wrap, and let the dough rest and relax for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, flour a work surface about 2 feet wide, and gently scrape the dough mass out onto the work surface. This is a point at which we knead and allow the dough to rise. Flour the mass of dough and begin kneading only for about a minute or two, just until the dough comes together as a smooth, single mass. Once you feel that you've sufficiently kneaded the dough, try to get it to come together as a single ball. If the dough sticks to your hands too much here, it might need a little more kneading or maybe a little extra flour. This is about what it should look like. Maybe not. A little more flour. Hey, that looks better. Now oil a large bowl lightly and gently lift the dough ball into the bowl. Turn the dough ball to coat entirely in oil. And cover with a tight-fitting lid. Allow dough to rest and bulk ferment for 2 hours. After 2 hours is up, uncover the dough, and then we're going to begin shaping it into dough balls. Again, flour a work surface about 2 feet wide. And gently coax the dough out onto the work surface, trying not to deflate the dough too much. Generously flour the top of the dough and kind of form it into a even, uniform shape. Taking a bench cutter or a knife, divide the dough into 3 equal portions. Italian pizzialos often weigh the dough to portion it, but eyeballing it is totally fine. Once you have 3 equal portions, start forming it into a rough ball shape. If one of them looks too small, borrow some from one of the larger ones. It's very forgiving. And now lightly flour a baking tray or large plate with enough room to allow the dough to expand for its final rise and secondary ferment. And here's where we'll start shaping the dough. Flatten it out a bit into a disc, tug on the right side of the dough and fold it over. Do the same on the left side, fold it over, then pull the top, fold it over, pull the bottom down, fold it over onto itself, and then using the inner edges of your hands, sort of push the dough in sort of a clockwise or counterclockwise motion and tightly wrap the dough into a ball. You're basically using the edges of your hands to pinch the dough seam together. And there you go. Place that ball of dough on the tray and dust the top with flour for its final rest. Let's see that shaping technique one more time, a little closer. Once again, you're going to flatten the dough ball out into a disc, tug on the right side, fold it over into a third, do the same on the left side, fold it over, pull the top or bottom, fold it over, and then pull the top or bottom again, fold it over onto itself. And then this is where you're going to use the edges of your hands to start pinching the dough seam together into a tight ball. If the seam of dough doesn't come together on its own, just use your hands to pinch it together. And form it into a tight ball again. And that's it. Now that we've shaped our dough balls, it's time for the second ferment and final rest. Make sure to generously flour the tops of all 3 dough balls, and then cover with plastic wrap. Once you've sufficiently covered your dough balls in plastic wrap, ensuring that no drafts will come in and dry them out, we're going to allow them to rest and secondary ferment for 6 hours. 6 hours later. Your dough should have risen quite a bit at this point. We're going to again flour a work surface and attempt to get these dough balls apart. They seem to have stuck together. Begin flattening the dough out into a rough pizza crust shape. Using your fingertips really helps to push the trapped bubbles of air out towards the edge where you want them. It's not great to have a giant bubble in the middle of your pizza. And then you can use this sort of pinch and drape technique to really get the dough to stretch out into a larger diameter. Check out those bubbles around the edges. That's a good sign of fermentation. The final diameter of the dough and thickness of the crust are really up to you, but I find that these make a pretty decent 12-inch Neapolitan style, which is my preferred at-home pizza method. And now comes the fun part, making pizza. Lightly flour the inside of a cast iron pan. We're going to be using a skillet broiler technique to achieve Neapolitan pizza at home. So place the pan on the stove and turn the burner on to about medium-high, and then get your broiler turned on to high as well. Once you see the flour in the pan start to turn golden brown, lay the pizza crust out and shape it into its final form. Please be careful and don't burn your fingers. And then using extra virgin olive oil, drizzle it around the perimeter of the crust, and then safely spread that olive oil around. I'd recommend using a pastry brush, not your fingers like I did here. The olive oil will help prevent the crust from burning too much, but also turn it a bit golden under the broiler. Now add the 1/4 cup or up to 1/3 cup of sauce, and spread around with the back of a ladle or spoon. Top with these strips of fresh mozzarella. And notice that the burner is on during this time, allowing the underside of the pizza crust to continue cooking. You might start to notice some bubbles coming up through the dough and through the sauce. And drizzle more extra virgin olive oil over the top of the pizza. Once you start to smell the underside of the pizza start to brown and maybe char a little bit, it's time for it to go under the broiler. Keep a close eye on the pizza while it's under the broiler, making sure it doesn't burn. If one side's getting a little too much heat, turn it 90 degrees and continue. Once the cheese is melted and it's sufficiently cheetah spotted all over to your liking, remove from the oven and place back on the stove with the burner on. It'll continue to cook on the underside one more time. Also at this point, add your preferred toppings. I'm going with pepperoni and fresh basil. Oh, and don't forget the fresh parm. Buon appetito!